Solitary confinement, a world unseen, where time stands still and reality blurs. It's a place of isolation, a tool used by correctional facilities worldwide, designed to maintain order, act as punishment, or provide protection. But what does it truly entail? Picture a room, no larger than a small parking space, devoid of human contact, day in, day out. The only constant companion is your own thoughts, amplified in the deafening silence. 7 days might seem insignificant in the grand scheme of a lifetime, yet in the world of solitary confinement, it's an eternity. In this video, we'll take you on a chronological journey, a deep dive into what a week in solitary confinement feels like. From the arrival to the aftermath, we'll explore the psychological and emotional roller coaster that unfolds. They say a week can feel like a lifetime, so prepare to enter a world where time and space lose all meaning. Scene script. Day 1, the arrival, the beginning of a journey into the unknown. Imagine stepping into a room, a small confined space, devoid of any human contact, and the door closing behind you. This is not just any room, but one that will be your world for the next 7 days. The initial shock is palpable, like a cold splash of water that jolts you awake. You're suddenly alone, plunged into a world of eerie silence, a stark contrast to the cacophony of everyday life. As the hours tick by, the walls seem to close in. The silence becomes a deafening roar in your ears. There are no conversations, no laughter, no arguments, and no camaraderie. Just you and your thoughts. It's a strange sensation, this sudden isolation, like being adrift on a vast ocean with nothing but the horizon in sight. Nighttime, usually a respite from the day's toil, offers no comfort. Instead, the first night's sleep, or lack thereof, introduces a new set of challenges. The darkness is not just a physical state, but a mental one too, amplifying every thought, every fear, every regret. The bed is cold and uninviting, the blanket thin and rough. Every creak, every rustle, echoes in the stillness. It's not just a night, it's a long, drawn-out battle with solitude. And then as the first light of dawn seeps in, the reality of the situation starts to sink in. You're alone. This is your world for the next 6 days. As the first night falls, the reality of the situation starts to sink in. Day 2. The silence. The world outside ceases to exist. When we speak of silence, we imagine tranquility, peace. But in solitary confinement, it's a different kind of silence. It's a silence that screams, a silence that overwhelms. You're surrounded by 4 walls, and the only sound you hear is your own breathing. There's no human interaction, only the echo of your thoughts, bouncing off the cold, hard walls. You're left to your own devices, grappling with the quiet. You try to keep busy, to count the cracks in the wall, to trace the path of a tiny ant. But the silence persists, and loneliness creeps in, like an uninvited guest. You begin to long for a voice, any voice, other than your own. The silence amplifies the smallest of sounds, making them monstrous in the echo chamber of your cell. And in this deafening silence, the mind starts to play tricks. It's a game of survival, a test of sanity. In the silence, the mind begins to play tricks. Scene script. Day 3 to 5, the struggle, the battle within begins. These days are the crux of the solitary experience, where the mind starts to grapple with the harsh reality of isolation. The silence that was initially deafening now becomes a constant companion, a steady hum in the backdrop of your thoughts. The walls seem to close in, and the limited space feels even more confined. Time stretches. Each second feels like an hour. Each hour feels like a day. Loneliness seeps into every corner of your being. It's not just about being alone. It's about feeling cut off, disconnected from the world outside. Your mind becomes your world. Your thoughts become your reality. The internal dialogue becomes louder, and sometimes it's the only conversation you have. The emotional challenges are heavy. Despair can knock at the door at any moment, and hope seems like a distant memory. The longing for human interaction, for a simple conversation, for a smile or a laugh, can be overwhelming. Then comes the mental struggle. The mind is a maze, and when left alone, it can turn into a labyrinth. Thoughts can spiral, fears can amplify, and memories can become distorted. It's a battle to keep the mind from becoming your worst enemy. But within this struggle, there's also resilience. There's a search for coping mechanisms, for ways to keep the mind engaged and the spirit alive. Some people turn to physical exercises, others to meditation. Some find solace in prayer, others in the rhythm of their own heartbeats. And in this struggle, there's a profound realization. You understand the strength of the human spirit, its capacity to adapt, to endure, to fight. You learn about your own resilience, your own capacity to withstand adversity. You recognize that the struggle is not just about surviving solitary confinement. It's about maintaining sanity, about preserving a sense of self, about holding on to hope in the face of despair. It's about remembering who you are, even when everything around you is trying to make you forget. As the days blend into one, the struggle to remain grounded becomes real. Scene script. Day 6, the adaptation. The human spirit prevails. When pushed to the brink, there's an incredible force within us all that begins to emerge. It's the power of adaptability, the ability to adjust to new conditions, to rethink our approach to the world around us. In solitary confinement, this adaptability kicks in, not out of desire, but out of necessity. As the days roll on, the mind starts to carve out routines, building a sense of order within the chaos. A specific time for exercise, for reflection, for rest. These routines become the pillars of the day, the structure that keeps the mind from spiraling into the abyss of despair. At the same time, there's a silent acceptance that starts to settle in, an acceptance of the reality of the situation. It's not a surrender, but rather a recognition that this is the current state of affairs, and it must be dealt with. It's a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, but it's more than just acceptance and routine. It's the strength of the human spirit that truly shines through. The will to keep going, to persist, to endure, despite the harshest of conditions. It's this strength, this indomitable spirit, that's an integral part of our human nature. In the face of adversity, the human spirit remains unbroken. Scene script. Day 7, the release. Freedom tastes sweeter than ever. Imagine waking up from a deep sleep, only to find yourself in a world where the sun shines brighter, where the air feels fresher, and every single moment brims with an overwhelming sense of liberty. That is the joy of release. It's a joy that can only be truly understood by those who have been deprived of their freedom, who have been confined within four walls that seem to close in on them with each passing moment. Can you feel it? The weight lifting off your shoulders as the lock clicks open. It's an exhilarating release of tension, a rush of relief that floods over you, washing away the remnants of a week spent in solitude. It's the first breath you take that isn't laced with the stench of confinement, the first step you take that isn't limited by boundaries. This newfound appreciation for freedom isn't just about the physical constraints that have been lifted. It's about the mental chains that have been shattered too. The lessons learned in solitary confinement aren't confined to the walls of the cell. They seep into every aspect of life, teaching you the value of patience, resilience, and the human spirit's indomitable will to survive against all odds. Imagine then the dichotomy of the experience, the confinement that felt like an eternity, but also served as a profound teacher, the isolation that was a harsh reality, but also a catalyst for personal growth. As the door opens, a week-long journey ends, but the lessons learned will last a lifetime. In the aftermath, the echoes of solitary confinement linger. From the outside, it may seem like a mere 7 days, but within those walls, time stretches, warps, and morphs into an endless array of solitary moments. Each second is magnified, each minute an eternity. The experience is a profound one, leaving an indelible mark on the psyche of the individual. It's not just about the physical isolation. It's the mental solitude that gnaws at the core of your being. It forces you to confront yourself in a way that is both terrifying and enlightening. You learn about your strengths, your weaknesses, your fears, and your hopes. You discover the depths of your resilience, the limits of your endurance, and the unyielding power of your spirit. But it also teaches you about the importance of freedom, the freedom to move, to speak, to interact. It highlights the significance of human connection, the simple joy of sharing a moment, a laugh, a conversation. It underscores the value of mental health, of keeping your mind active, engaged, and healthy. These lessons, hard-earned and deeply felt, serve as a stark reminder of the realities faced by countless individuals within the prison system. They underscore the need for reform, for change, for a system that values rehabilitation over punishment, that sees the individual behind the crime. Solitary confinement, a hidden world that teaches us the true value of freedom, human connection, and the resilience of the human